From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast, and I am your host, Chris Terrell. And welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you, champion? What new challenges did you encounter? But more importantly, what failure did you go through, and what lesson did you get from that failure? Come on now, don't let a perfectly good failure go by without you getting your lesson. That's your reward for your troubles. Now, if you're new here, I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic yo-yo dieting. Up, down again, before I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I made some permanent, meaningful, and actual changes to my real-life lifestyle, habits, routines, environment, community, and systems of belief. Because it's all six forces of these that make the results in my life. And if I want to get new results in my life, I got to work on the six forces, and that will get me an entirely new result. Because you see, your body is a reflection of your lifestyle, habits, routines, environment, community, and belief systems. All of these things impact the results that you get in your life. So if you want to get new results in your life, you're going to have to go change all of those six things. And now I'm here each week to help you get the same results in your life. So, welcome. All right, so this week, this is the second week I'm doing this. I'm doing it right now. I see y'all in the chat. Unfortunately, the show must go on. I'm live streaming my recording of the podcast to my YouTube channel. So if you don't know I have a YouTube channel, I have a YouTube channel. You can head over to youtube.com and type in Chris Terrell Coaching, and that will bring it up. And you can subscribe. You'll get notified whenever I go live if you hit the notification bell. And you can also watch the video replay of the podcast. And if you are a Spotify listener, you may have noticed that there's a video feature. I am now uploading the Chris Terrell podcast in a video form. So that's fun. That's something new I'm doing. As I mentioned before, with the TikTok ban, my life really needs TikTok, and I need to not have that be reality. So I'm going to make some changes. And one of the things I'm doing is I'm leaning more into podcasting this year. I'm actually adding new podcasts. So I've got a whole new podcast coming, already purchased the domain, already working on the graphics. I'm not ready to reveal the name yet, but I'm super excited for that one. And also, I'm thinking I'm either going to do another whole podcast, so two more, or the Chris Terrell podcast is going to get more episodes per week. So one or the other. I haven't decided which. Those of you at YouTube that are watching right now, feel free to let me know what you think in the comments of that option. But definitely another podcast is coming regardless. I'm going much deeper into the podcasting world, and I'm very excited about that. But I wanted to talk today to those of you in the beginning of the journey. Now, let me describe some of you what you might be. Now, those of you might have moved beyond this. I may be talking about a past version of yourself. That's okay. But I'm sharing this because I want to here's a challenge I've run into with weight loss. The advice I would give somebody who is at day 0 of their journey, they've not lost a single pound. Not one single pound has been lost. I would talk to that person differently than I would talk to somebody that is, let's say, lost 100 pounds and they've been doing it for 2 years consistently. I would talk to that person differently. Sometimes I think what happens is a person thinks the advice they're hearing is good or bad advice, but maybe it was just the wrong advice for where you are on your journey, right? Now, this is easier to spot when you get later on in the journey, but in the beginning, it's easy to mistake more advanced information as not helpful, when in fact it's just more advanced. It's helpful, but it's not bad. You're just not, you were getting advice you weren't, well, quite honestly, you just weren't ready for yet. And so today I wanted to talk to those of you in the beginning, in the early days, the early months of your weight loss journey. And I wanted to share with you some of the things that I learned that really helped me in the beginning, that I truly believe have helped me be successful. And I have seen other people in their journeys apply the same things and get results. And so you can see it if you're looking on the video. I got a notepad here with just a few bullet points written on it. And what this notebook's actually a very special notebook. So I'll just show it right here on camera. Again, it's just a simple green spiral college rule notebook. Nothing crazy. But I've had this since I started working for myself. This was the first one I bought. And it has a bunch of concepts, a bunch of lessons, a bunch of things that I want to do. Some of these are actual things that happened, like my entire Mindset of Weight Loss Masterclass. That is in here. Like, it was all written in this book is where I wrote it. I would come in before the session and like, this is one of the pages. And I would just sit down and go, what do I want to cover? And I would just write. And I would just write out the entire thing in one sitting. I'm like, this is everything I want to cover. Now, I had written it many, many times, right? Like, it wasn't the first time I wrote it. It was just the one I'm going to deliver. It's like, okay, write the final draft. Sit down, boom, write the final draft. Anyway, for every page I shared in here, there's several pages I didn't, that has things because I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know where to put it. And so what I'm doing now on the podcast is I'm going back through my old books and my old journals and my old notebooks and going like, okay, what is something that just, it didn't get shared somewhere. You know, I couldn't figure out how to tie it into a lesson. I didn't end up needing it with coaching, or I used it, right? But I forgot about it. But I'm big on just writing down thoughts and then coming back around and visiting them. And so this is one I'm going to dig into that. Now, one of the things I'm kind of talking about journaling. Like, I would consider this journaling. Not necessarily the speech part, but like where I'm like, okay, I'm answering a question, blah, blah, blah. This is me journaling out what I did, why I did it. Like, that's me journaling. Sometimes people, when they think journaling, they think like, oh, I got to write down all my thoughts and what I'm feeling, which is good. You need to do that. Like, totally. Sometimes you just need to go take a mental, bear with the analogy here. You just got to go take a mental poo, right? You just got stuff built up. You just got to go get it out, right? It's just a necessary part of life. You got to just sit down on the paper and just go, blah, blah, blah. Just get everything on it. And then you just take that page and you can just rip it out, tear it into shreds, throw it in the trash, or burn it, or whatever, right? You can do that. But that's not the only kind of journaling. There's lots of kind of journaling. And journaling was such a crucial thing to help me get through my weight loss journey. Why? Because, hi, my name's Chris Terrell. I like to emotionally eat. And when I wanted to emotionally eat, I needed something to do instead. And a lot of times what the answers were, I needed to process my feelings. Now, journaling in the beginning was not something I was good at. But now, 5 years later of doing it pretty regularly, I'm a lot better at it. I use it and it's crazy how my practice of journaling has evolved. But many of you, I know you've been thinking about getting into journaling. Those of you in the beginning of the journey, you might have like, got all these negative feelings about journaling. Or maybe you one time had somebody read your journal and now you're terrified to ever do it again. Look, I want to ask you just to trust me and take a leap of faith and see the value in journaling. See the value in thinking on paper. And what I've done to make that easier is I've made a free journaling guide. Like, this, it's a good guide. It's a good guide. This isn't like some 2-pager thing. Like, there's a lot of great information, and I've been using this guide for years, and I've had so many people reach out to me and tell me how this guide has helped them get into journaling. And I want to give you the guide. There's 2 ways you can get to it. There's a direct link to it. It'll be in the show notes of the podcast, or you can head on over to christerrellcoaching.com and click on free content up in the navigation menu. So you go to christerrellcoaching.com. If you're on a phone, there'll be 3 little lines. Tap it. You'll see free content. And then you're going to see another page. You scroll down. It should be the second one on the screen. It says free journaling guide. You click to download. Give me your email, first and last name, and I will email it to you. You'll have it in your inbox, ready to go. Okay. And I love this guide. Feel free to share it. Feel free to give it to other people, right? Or share the link and have other people go to it. But if you're looking to get into journaling and you're not sure what to do, this guide is made for you to think on paper. Here I am. I'm about to share with you thoughts that I put down on paper years ago because I don't remember them exactly the same. And I don't need to because they're here on the page. So let's talk again to you in the beginning and share with you some of the things that helped me get the transformation, because I think some of these things will help you get a transformation as well. To get new results in your life, you're going to need to use new solutions. Okay? New solutions. You're going to need to do things you've never done before. Many of you have the same old problem and you keep using the same old solutions to it. You got to be willing to go do something you've never done before. Now, it's interesting, as I'm going to kind of share with you how today's concept is coming into existence for today's podcast episode. So I have this note card right here. Those of you watching on video on Spotify or YouTube, you can see it. I'm holding it up, but it's just a simple 3x5 note card with a piece of tape on it. And if the camera will focus, those of you can see it. And you can just see right here, it just says, fall in love with taking uncomfortable action. I actually wrote this note card the same time this notebook came into existence because I was doing my first webinar. This came into existence a little bit before, but like I was doing my first webinar and I was going through a program. It's a guy named Dean Graziosi. I was going through his program and he said a line that really stood out to me. He said, fall in love with taking uncomfortable action. And I remember from my weight loss journey, I was like, that's it. That's what it was. Like I would want to do something new, but it would feel so crazy uncomfortable to take this action, to do the solution I've never done before in the same old problem. It's tremendously uncomfortable. Sometimes it actually feels wrong to do it. It feels wrong. Your brain tells you, no, if I go down this path, it won't work. But actually, that is the path that will make it work. You've just never gone down it. And I realized if I can get myself to fall in love with taking uncomfortable action, I'll get results. A lot of times the reason why I'm not getting results, it's not because I'm doing the wrong things. It's because I'm stuck on the starting line and I won't get off it. I won't come off it and just get working on the problem and just stumble my way forward. I'm too concerned about what people think of me. I'm too concerned about what might happen. Oh no, I might make something worse and have a mess I have to deal with. I'm just sitting here what-ifing myself from ever taking a step forward towards solving whatever it is I need to solve. And so I always remind myself to fall in love with taking uncomfortable action. And this right here has been taped on my right over here next to my door since I moved into this office. And before that, it was taped next to my bed. And before that was in the office floor. I have been staring at, before that it was in a bathroom. It was in the bathroom in my office. So every time I walked in the bathroom, it was right there, front and center in the mirror. I had no choice but to look at it. Had no choice. And if I noticed I started moving around, I would move it and stick it somewhere else. I've had to use my second piece of tape. I've made sure I have been staring at this note card, fall in love with taking uncomfortable action. I've been staring at it for years. When it was next to my bed, it was literally on the wall. So when I wake up, if I look to the left, there it would be, right there where I could see it. Fall in love with taking uncomfortable action, and you will get results. You will make mistakes. You will get it wrong. Like you're going to backpedal. But I don't think that's a problem. That's fine with me. If you have a problem with it, well, I guess you're going to have to work through that. That's your association with failure, I suppose. But it's funny. It fell down. And again, if you're looking on the video, you can see it, but I'm pointing at a TV. I just moved this TV over here yesterday. It used to be over there because I'm rearranging my studio. And this was taped on the wall right next to the door. And the TV is not blocking it. So I moved it and it fell down. And when I opened the studio door, it was just sitting right there on the ground. Now, I've been staring at this note card for years, and I forgot that I had actually written something on the other side. There were words written on the other side. I forgot. And this thing had landed on the ground, not facing the way I always saw it. It was laying on the ground facing the other way. And I look down and I see this note card, and I pick it up and I read this right here. And I was like, this is what the podcast is going to be about today. I need to flesh it out more, but this is what the podcast is going to be about today. I didn't know this is what the podcast was going to be about until I saw it. And I was like, this is it. Because you need to know this. I needed to know this. I knew I needed to know it so much I wrote it down on a piece of paper. And this was so important. I forgot about this. I used to stare at this all the time. This is what the message used to be. And now the message has been this, and I forgot about the first version. See, right now I'm at a place in life where the place it was fall in love with taking uncomfortable action. I was really reinforcing that. Can I tell you what it was before? Learn the difference between quitting and changing direction. Learned the difference between quitting and changing direction. So one of the things that you're going to have to do to make it to the other side of your weight loss journey, to make it to the other side of any transformation journey that you're going on, is you will have a better result if you can spot the difference between quitting and between a pivot, changing directions, altering your course. You see, I once used to think that if I'm altering my course, especially if I'm altering it too often. Well, now I'm a flip-flopper. Now I'm a waffler. And now I can't be trusted. So I needed to learn the difference between quitting and changing directions, because in my weight loss journey in the past, what I always did is when it got too hard, I quit. That was the path I always took. I always took the path of quitting. But what I needed to do was reframe changing directions as not a negative. It's not me waffling. It's not me being indecisive. It's me having the courage to change my mind. And that was something that I leaned into. For whatever reason, at the beginning of my journey, if you talk to Chris at 34 years old, he thought that you shouldn't change your mind. I was very much one of those people that, like, if a politician changed their stance on something, that meant I couldn't trust them, because I had a limited view of thinking. I thought that people shouldn't change, right? You need to find out who you are and you be that. But I wanted to change. I didn't like who I was and I wanted to change, but I didn't think people could change or should change. And so that belief of people shouldn't change was holding me back. I needed to destroy that belief so that I would then be free to change in a peaceful way. And I began learning that changing direction is a good thing as long as I'm doing it as a response, not as a involuntary reaction. So when you have the old problem of weight loss journeys get hard and I always quit, you will have to find a way not to quit. And the best way to do that is actually just to change what you're doing. Change what you're doing. And this leads to the second point I actually want to talk about. I'm just going to read what I wrote here on the notebook. Recognize I don't know everything. I'm missing something, or it would have worked by now. This is that mindset that I adopted in the beginning of my journey that I truly believe is what has led to me being successful in my transformation, and I think it will help you too. And that is to humble yourself and recognize you don't know everything. That if you knew how to lose the weight and keep it off, you would have done it by now. Because it's not been from a lack of will. It's probably not even for many of you, not even from a lack of effort. It's just simply from a lack of not knowing what to do. You're missing something, or you think something's true that's wrong, or like you have some information in your head that doesn't quite line up. And so as an example, back to the quitting thing, when you think about quitting, your brain is telling you that's the logical choice. Whenever you quit, it's because you thought it was the best choice. You thought it was correct, right? That doesn't mean you liked it, right? If I get bit by a dog, the right choice is to go get a penicillin shot. That doesn't mean I like it. Have you had a shot of that? It hurts. So I've been bit by a dog and got the antibiotic shot. It hurts. And so it's like there's nothing good about this, but it's the right path to go. And so I realized in the beginning of my journey, if I want to get results I've never had before, if I want to do new solutions that I've never done before, I got to think of things I've never thought before. I have to think of ways of solving a problem that have never crossed my mind. And that was a really difficult thing, because what the implications of that is I can't trust my intuition. Because if I want to do something I've never done before, that means if I can remember having done it before, I need to not do that, or I need to be very skeptical of doing it again. And I say be skeptical because there were things I did in the past that I did again because they did work, but sometimes they needed modification. Like as an example, I did reduce my carb intake when losing weight. That element of reducing it, I got from keto because I learned what carbs do, only partially in the body. And I saw that by lowering carbs, I'm lowering readily access energy to my body, and therefore it's helping me lose weight. I'm not going to get into the mechanics of why that works. I didn't do it for the reason of being in ketosis. I didn't do it for the reason of cutting carbs. I was just creating a calorie deficit, and that was an easy way to do it. And I was trying to manage my hunger. And I noticed if I ate a lot of carbs, I got really hungry. And if I reduced my carbs, my hunger went down, which psychologically made it easier to stick to my weight loss journey. So that's why I did it. I didn't do it because of keto and carbs were bad. It was just cause and effect. But I needed to hear these ideas by being willing to look at the stuff I did in the past with an open mind, but I needed to be skeptical because it's like, I cannot just do what I did before. So to those of you in the beginning, if you're finding you're getting frustrated and you find you're getting like, gosh, this isn't working, I want to quit. Don't quit. Just pivot. Just pivot what you're doing. Just alter your approach, right? Be very cautious of just throwing out your approach entirely and going to something new. that can sometimes make it feel like you're doing something when you're not. You're just taking a massive setback. When the better answer would be just to keep going and just get through this hard part, because then the hard part will be behind you. Now, let me switch. This is another realization I had in the beginning of my journey. That's going to be a totally big shift from what we're talking about right now. So let's pivot directions on that. And to kind of help with that pivot, let me just take a moment and invite you to join my free Facebook group. You can find a link to that by going to christerrellcoaching.com and clicking on free resources in the navigation menu. And in there, you'll find a link to join the free Facebook group. I would love to have you come be a part of that community. It's a wonderful group of people. You can get some tremendously helpful weight loss advice and encouragement in there, and I'd love to have you come be a part of it. You can also find a link to it in the show notes of the podcast. And if you're a Spotify listener, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite you to leave a comment on it. Yeah, it's a new feature. Some of you, like Kate, I see you. You're leaving comments. Appreciate it. I see many of you leaving comments all the time. I would love to have you leave more comments. I love hearing your feedback. I love knowing what resonated with you. I love knowing like, ooh, that helped me think of this. It encourages me, but also what it does is it helps me get a sense of what's working and what's not. And I love getting that feedback from you. So let's pivot here. Let's talk about another realization that I had in the beginning of my journey that I really think will help you. And that is, I made the choice to, for the first time in my life, I was going to manage myself. Now, let me explain why I did that. For me in my life at that time, I very much identified with what I did. Like my identity was wrapped up in what I did for a living. At that time of my life, that's how I was. And so I would say things like, I'm a manager. It was really important to me that I'm a good manager at my job. It was very important to me that I'm viewed as competent, that I was viewed as hireable, that I was viewed as reliable. These were very, very important things to me. And so I asked myself a question, and I pulled this actually from Dave Ramsey. So let me tell you where I got it from him, and we'll work the journey back to how I applied it in my weight loss journey. He basically said, like, you're responsible for for managing your money. So would you hire you to manage your money based off of what you've done? Or would you fire you? Right? Like it was a sort of a way of like shocking you into reality that like, hey, the way you manage your money, like, just so you know, if we evaluated you based just off of that, no one would hire you because you're shite at it. Like, we just look at the evidence. And for me, that was a very useful thing to help me get, start really working on my finances. And so I transferred that to my weight loss. And I said, okay, well, if we just look at me as I manage myself, manage my life, I think I'm a good manager. I think I'm all these things. But would I hire me to manage me based off of my results? Would I hire me? Like if me, the chairman of the board looking for a CEO to run me incorporated, would I hire Chris Terrell to do it based off of his previous accomplishments? And the reality was, the answer to that question was a resounding hell no. No. And that bothered me. Like that really bothered me that I wouldn't hire me. Like when I was because I wanted to, I wanted myself to want to hire me to manage my life. But if I just kind of detached from my story and kind of took my emotions and set them in a bucket off to the side for just a moment, and I can pick them back up again, just set them over there for a moment and just critically and objectively look at my life and look at how I manage myself and look at what I do. I'd be like, fuck no, I would not hire me to manage me. No. I'm a terrible manager of myself. I don't give myself the proper tools to do things. I don't set the proper expectations. I don't give myself the proper training. I give myself these completely unrealistic expectations and then demand myself do them. And then when I don't do them, I berate myself for it. It's like, gosh, I'm not pleasant to work for. And that was the other thing I had to ask myself. Would I work for me? Like if I had to work for me, would I do it in the way I manage my life? Professionally, I wanted to be the kind of boss people would want to work for. I'd want to be the kind of person that I would want to work for, if I'm being honest. And at work, I honestly could stand by that. Like I was like, I am the kind of person I want to work for. Why? Because I had lots of managers to pick from. But get me out of work and look at how I manage me and the rest of my life. Would I want to work for me? No. No, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have wanted to work for me at all. Because I didn't set myself up for success. Not at all. And I had to, and I sat with that. And that helped me realize that if I'm going to take ownership of my life, I got to start managing me. I got to be a good manager. I got to do the things. And this led to thought experiment number 2. We flip it. Would I hire me? Would I hire me? I'm telling you, these are the questions I wrote. Like, I'm literally reading these. Like, this is so fun. Like, would I hire me? And I thought about it at the beginning of my journey, and I was like, no, I'm a terrible employee for myself. Like, even if there is a moment when I do act as a good manager, like, it's not that I was 100% exclusively always a terrible manager to myself. No, of course not. Sometimes I was actually perfectly reasonable. I gave myself a perfectly reasonable plan. I gave myself all the tools and all the training and all the proper expectations to get it done. And I gave myself an effective, efficient, and adaptable strategy to do it. Sometimes I was actually a good manager. But me, I was a stubborn-ass employee, like, no, I'm not going to do it because I want to go do these other things. And I would just ignore it. Why? Because I chased whatever felt good in the moment. You know? Oh, I know what I should do, but I'm going to go home and play video games. Why? Because I want to. You know, I was always chasing what I wanted to. And then when something would get hard, I would just make up a bunch of excuses. And if I couldn't come up with any good excuses, I would just quit and say, I can't do it. It's not possible, right? I wouldn't listen, right? I wouldn't go research. And, as an employee, I was given my directive, but I wouldn't then go, well, I don't understand. And then go ask questions to get understanding. I'd be like, well, I just don't understand. So I guess I won't do it, right? I mean, I was just a terrible person to hire. So I had to realize this is the problem. I am sometimes just a great manager, but I will be just a rotten employee. But I was not always a rotten employee. Sometimes I'd be a good employee. I would really show up. If I gave myself a directive, I would go and learn how to do it. And then I would go do it. And then I would put into place systems and procedures to get myself to do it. The problem is once the management side of me or the employee side of me got off, the whole thing came crashing down. And I wasn't intentionally being a good manager, and I wasn't intentionally being a good employee to myself. I would not have hired me, and I would not have wanted to work for me. And this made me stuck. And so if I look at this, and I said, okay, how would I approach this in a business setting? If I have a manager that has skill sets that are very valuable, they have intimate knowledge of the product, but their management skills are just bleh, and they're just pissing people off, what would I do? Well, I've faced this problem before. First thing I would do is I would get them the training, management training. I mean, I got a whole bookshelf up here full of just management books. They're some of my favorite books to read. And it was normal that me and my peers were reading these books. Why? Because we're trying to level up our management skills. But I was only applying it at work. I was never applying any of that at home. I was never applying any of it with myself. Because at work, I only had to be the manager or the employee. I rarely had to be both. I mean, I know technically a manager is an employee. I got that. But it's the mentality you bring with it. An employee mentality is different than the manager mentality. And they need to be different because they do different tasks. But the complicated part of being a human in your personal life is you need to find a way to do both. You've got to find a way to manage your finances, come up with a plan for your finances, and then execute on the plan for the finances. The manager will create it. The employee will execute, will go do the job. It's the employee that swipes the debit card. Right? It's the same thing when you're working with your food. The manager will make the plan. It will set the expectations. It will provide the tools to yourself. It will provide the training to yourself. And then you, the employee, must use them. And if you don't get the training, you have to raise your hand and say, I need more training. And then the manager within you needs to be like, I need to give myself more training. And that is your problem to solve, to overcome. It's your responsibility to overcome it. And it is so tricky sometimes to take complete and total ownership of your life because it's going to involve taking ownership of the roles that you play in your life. To get results you've never had, you're going to have to use solutions you've never done. And to do that, you're going to need to get ideas you've never thought of before. That's what training is. If you don't know how to do something, you go get trained on how to do it. If you want to learn how to drive and you've never driven before, you would hire a teacher to teach you how to drive. Not because driving is in and of itself particularly complicated. It's really not that hard to use. But I want to make sure that you remember that driving is nothing more than a skill. It is just a skill to be learned. And if you have a teacher, you can learn it quicker and you can learn it safer and you will develop less bad habits. Could you teach yourself how to drive? Yes, many people do. But they also teach themselves how to drive and they end up with bad habits. Sure, they don't crash very often, but that doesn't make them a good driver. I have ridden in the car with some people where I'm like, they are a bad driver and it is a damn miracle. They have not killed themselves or killed someone else how they drive. They must have angels following them around everywhere because they should be dead because of the way they drive. Many of you have been in a vehicle with somebody like that. You're like, no, I'm never riding in a vehicle with you. It's scary. It's scary. Now, if they're 89 years old, you ain't changing them. If they're 17, you got a shot. Maybe you can change them. The challenge is many of you need to change and you're 50 years old. You're 45 years old. Your brain doesn't want to change as easily as when it was 17. I mean, a 17-year-old brain doesn't want to change much either, but it actually is pretty easy to change it, right? That 45-year-old brain, for you to change it yourself on command, that's going to be a little trickier sometimes. Your 40-year-old brain, your 50-year-old brain, your 80-year-old brain, like you get sort of stuck. That happens to humans. We just get stuck. But we've got to take ownership of our stuckness. We've got to break the impasse. You see, the federal government, they get to have gridlock where the right and the left are fighting and nothing gets done. Within you, you've got to find a way to rise above that game of one side of you want one thing, one side of you wants the other, and you end up with this gridlock. The employee side of you and the manager side of you can't come together. And that's when the CEO in you needs to come down, find out what's going on. And this is where we're going to end. This is the big thing I realized. The reason why I was a bad manager, the reason why I was a bad employee is because I was an absent CEO. I was absent. I was asleep at the helm. I was just letting the people in my business of me incorporated do what it is that they're going to do. They're running however they want to run it. You know, the side of me that's handling what I eat, they're just doing whatever they damn well please. They don't care about the side of me that worries about my health and wellness. They're not checking in. They're not collaborating. They're not coordinating. There's a term in business. And if you've ever lived in a business or worked at a business that has this problem, you will recognize it and you will realize how awful it is. And it is a problem called silos. When you have silos in business, S-I-L-O, where you segregate information, people, concepts, and then you end up with the accounting department fighting the HR department, and the HR department fighting this, and this department fighting that. And everybody's competing against each other, and they're forgetting they all work for the same company, and they're trying to have the same objectives of being successful. And it becomes really challenging when you have silos. In fact, one of my favorite business books that I have back here is all about preventing and getting rid of silos in business because they are just detrimental. The challenge that I realized I had within me in the beginning of my journey is that I had created unintentionally silos within me. I had all these sides of me, all these aspects of me that were all just interested in their own damn desires, but there was no coordination. There was no one within me that stood up and said, everybody within me, we're going this way. This is what we want. This is what we want to go. Here's how we're going to do it, and we're going to do it. And the rest of you within me, it is time to get with the program. We've got to have a unifying direction. And unless one of you within me can come up with one and get some consensus, damn it, I'm the CEO. We're going this way. I can't fire you. And you see, I realized you have to go within you and set this direction. And then you got to go piece by piece by piece by piece by piece within you and get yourself to seek to go to the same place. You got to go to the side of you that wants to deal at the end of the day when you want to decompress. We talked about that with somebody this week in a hot seat coaching session in the Guild. How do you handle decompression after work? That version of you wants different things than the version of you in the morning does. Than the version of you at noon. You got to have all versions of you in alignment, all trying to help each other out, all trying to do each other solids. You know that feeling you're at night, your gas tank's empty, you're like, I'm going to leave that to morning me. And then morning you wakes up like, fuck you, night me. You had time. I don't have time. Right? You got to go talk to those two sides of you and get them to make peace. That's the CEO's job. You got to go talk to all the people. You got to figure it out. You got to set the direction. You got to go to the manager and be like, why are you managing your team that way? You're just frustrating everybody. Are you giving them the tools, training, expectations? No. And the challenge is because you've been an absent CEO for so long, when you first show up and you go to within, you're like, hey, we're going to do it this way. You're going to have the side of you that always decides how you handle your fun eating at night. Be like, what are you talking about? You have never chimed in once for the last 10 years. And now suddenly you care, right? You might have this defiant side within you that challenges back. So the CEO within you has to rise above. You've got to tap into this sort of confident leadership energy within you, and you've got to let it out within yourself. You have to be able to stand up to the side of yourself when they freak out and be like, I'm not going to do this. What are you talking about here? And you're like, I know, I understand. I've been an absent CEO within us for the last 20 years. And I see the chaos that has come as a result of me being absent from my life, of me not bringing conscious attention to what I'm doing, of me checking out for months at a time. I see the damage that has been caused from that, and I apologize for that because we all should be further along. But we're not because I've been absent, self. And that is changing. We're going a new direction because we all deserve better. And I apologize for being gone. But we are in a new day. We are going to do things different. And I need you to help me. We need to go this way. We need to get this weight off, self. We've got to figure out how to get this weight off, self. We're going to have to change some habits. We're going to have to change some lifestyles. We're going to have to lose some people. This environment, we're going to have to make some shakeups to it. And look, some of these beliefs that we hold in our mind, they're going to have to go. And I know some of them are our favorites. We like them, right? We have really, really enjoyed being able to have Oreos whenever we wanted. I know, it's awesome. You've literally had no rules outside of the guilt of maybe this is making me fat and I don't want to diet. But we all know we could forget that. I know it's been a wild ride. It's been super fun staying up late at night to 1, 2, 3 in the morning, regularly playing video games, getting up early Saturday so we're not even catching up on sleep so we can play video games till 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon, only to rush to do all the things we have to do in the weekend so that we can rush to get back to our video games and let our life get further behind. It was fun. It was fun, but come on, man. Come on, man. Look at how far behind our life got because we were addicted to video games. We're going to have to change that, self. Look, I know you've loved. It was fun. It was really fun every Wednesday at the end of the day, calling up Pizza Hut and just ordering. Like, I'd like a large pizza for pickup, right? You're thinking, oh, this is fun. Everybody has pizza nights. I love having pizza night. This is going to be a blast. And you start getting pizza. You start with just a medium pizza, saying you're going to only eat half of it. Then you're regularly eating the whole medium. But now you're bummed because you're not ever getting any leftovers. So one Wednesday for funsies, you thought, I'll get a large so I'll have leftovers. You have leftovers once, no problem, because you eat the same amount you normally do. But then the next weekend, you ate the entire large pizza. Right. And then it became this fun game that you did all the time for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on end, where maybe I'll eat the whole large pizza or maybe I won't. Right. Because remember, we're still eating other snacks. It's not like the pizza was the only thing we were eating. We were just always sad when we got so full and no more pizza would fit. Like, it was fun. It was fun going to Pizza Hut, during the buffets and having this goal of wanting to eat 12 slices of pizza at lunch. Like it was like his point of honor, because you still remember that one time when you were a kid and you were so proud of yourself that you slammed down 10 pieces of pizza at a lunch. You're like, I eat 10 pieces of pizza. And I'm like, that's a lot. You're like, oh, this is great. You're bragging to yourself. And people are like, wow, that's impressive. And you're like, that was impressive. And you've been chasing that high ever since. You're 30 years old, still chasing that high again of maybe I could get more. But like, why? Why? Nah, because it's just an excuse. You liked pizza and it was sad. I remember being sad when I couldn't fit any more pizza in. So I would go off and do something until more pizza would fit. I would sit there at Pizza Hut and wait and just wait until I felt like I could get another piece of pizza in. I would go to Cece's and gorge myself on pizza and then just wait until I had enough room in my stomach that I could get at least 4 of those little mini cinnamon rolls in. Notice I said at least because I wanted to get more. I left when I had to go. If I still had time, I waited until I could get more food in. I loved buffets. Golden Corral, oh, let's not even talk about that temple of gluttony that I would go worship at the altar of the holy rolls and cinnamon butter. I love, or honey butter, whatever it was. I loved making my paying my Oma homage, whatever. I don't know. I'm trying to make it religious because it sure felt religious. I mean, my devotion to my eating. I had to, it was hard. It was hard to talk to myself and be like, look, I know this has been fun, but it's time. It's time. It's time. It's time to set aside childish things. It's time to stop saying it's okay that I eat like a toddler as an adult. Like, it's time to stop justifying that. It's time to stop saying I don't have time and then looking at myself for 6 months and going, but what are you doing to make more time? And the answer is nothing. It's time to stop doing that. It's time to stop saying I'm powerless to all this. There's nothing I can do. Everything is happening to me. It's time. It's time. I don't know how, but I know this. You fall in love with taking uncomfortable action. You have a hard day. You come home at the end of it. You want to eat. You don't. I don't know what you do instead, but you don't eat. I know. You want to feel better. You're not gonna. Not yet. Not through food. You're going to have to find a way to do it some other way. I don't know how you're going to do it. Maybe you won't. Maybe the way you get through it is by learning to be okay with not being okay. Maybe that's the lesson you need to learn, self. Maybe the lesson you need to learn, self, is that you don't actually need anything to change in your life to feel okay. And that, in fact, you just don't want to take ownership of it, self. And so you're going to blame everything around you. Maybe that's what it is. And that's what I did. In the beginning of my journey, I started realizing I got to take ownership of all of it. I got to take ownership for what my subconscious mind has me do. I got to stop pretending that I'm two different people. And I got to remember I'm the same person. And it was hard. It took me years to work through that. Do you have any idea how many times I had a setback? How many times I just slipped back into the old patterns? So many times. I lost count. I don't talk about them all the time because I don't remember. I don't even remember them. There were so many. In 26 months, my gosh, I failed like crazy. But the difference was the thing on the back of this card. I didn't quit. In the past, when I'd fail again and again and again, I'd just quit. The exit door was right there. It was always tempting to take it. But I wouldn't quit. I couldn't quit. I had to keep going. That was the difference. And to you in the beginning, take quitting off the table. Take quitting off the table, which means sometimes you're just going to be unhappy. And the answer to how you get through it is you stay unhappy for 3 days until you've processed it and you've moved on. Because you see, you numbing you is like this slow, agonizing suffering, right? You numb the feelings, but you're not actually solving anything. The thing that's creating the stress, it's still there. You're just running away from it into a bottom of a box of Cheez-Its, old me. That's what I had to realize. I had to look to myself and be like, stop solving your problems, Chris, by diving into the bottom of a box of Cheez-Its in a video game. Your answers to your problems are not there. And I know you need to have time to think about it, but fuck, man, do you need 2 years to think about it to take one step forward? No, you fall in love with taking uncomfortable action. That's what you do. And when you do that, your life will transform. Or transform. Don't quit. Just pivot. Alter your approach. Do something different. But don't go back to what you did. Look at your life. Would you work for you? And if the answer is no, don't choose to feel bad. Choose to level up the manager side of you. Get yourself the skills. Get a coach. Get a course. Get what you need. Do what you got to do to get it done. Look at yourself. Would you hire you? Or are you a terrible employee with no follow through? If that's the case, it's time to acquire the skills of follow through. You can learn how to do it. It's a skill set. Some of us are born and it comes easy. Some of us, it's harder. It's just like some of us can sing easy and some of us can't. But talent only gets you so far. You still got to do the same stuff and you still got to practice to be great at anything. Don't give up, though. Don't ever give up. No matter what. Don't give up. Hang in there, champion. This is going to be a wild ride. To those of you in the beginning of the journey, this is probably going to be a few years. I'm going to be here with you the whole time. I got a big old trail of breadcrumbs behind me. Almost 200 episodes of podcast episodes behind me. That's my big old trail of breadcrumbs. Whole loaves of bread, I call them. And I got a lot more coming. It's amazing. I talked to some of you. You're like, I've already listened to all of them. I'm like, well, you still got 100 pounds to go. I need to make more content for you to get you there, because I remember how valuable the content was in my head. I needed to listen to stuff that related to my weight loss journey and to the goal of what I'm doing every single day, most of the time. You need to take breaks from it sometimes. That's normal. But most of the time, I needed it. And I want to create that content for you, and that's why I'm here. So thanks for coming along. And if you are caught up, if you're really finding that the free content's there and every week you're chomping at the bits to get more, I'd like to invite you to consider the Guild of Champions. There's over 250 hours of content that only exists there, and we're adding more every week. Like on Wednesdays, I'm doing nothing but intermediate and advanced mindset work. On Mondays right now, we're doing a calorie tracking on-ramp program where I take you from nothing to losing some weight and tracking calories over the course of weeks. Even if you hate calorie tracking, you'll get results in this and you'll figure out how to do it in a way that's not so terrible. After that, we're launching into my habit-based program. Hey, have you lost all your weight and you want to keep it off? On Fridays, there in the Guild, we do maintenance mastery. Literally here in 40 minutes, I'm going into that call to do our maintenance mastery group call session. So if you're thinking like, I need more content, I need more coaching, I need a community, I need more advice, I've consumed all the free stuff and I got a long way to go and I need more, head on over to theguildofchampions.com, or you can find a link to that in the show notes of the episode. Have a great day, everybody. So good to see you. And I'm going to see you next week on the Chris Terrell Podcast. Bye.